The wind howled like a beast unleashed, tearing through the frozen wilderness with relentless fury. Snowflakes, sharp as knives, stung his face as he trudged forward, each step a battle against the deepening drifts. The blizzard had come without warning, swallowing the world in a white void. He pulled his coat tighter, his breath forming icy clouds in the air. The path ahead was barely visible, a faint line of hope in the chaos. His fingers were numb, his body weary, but he pressed on, driven by the thought of warmth and safety. Somewhere beyond this storm was home, a sanctuary from the cold. But as the shadows of the forest loomed closer, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. The storm had secrets, and the wilderness was watching. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of an encounter that would change his life forever. The man stopped, his heart pounding in his chest. Something was out there, something alive in the storm. Through the blinding snow, glowing eyes appeared, cold and unblinking. Wolves, a pack of them, their fur glistening with ice, emerged from the white void. They moved with a quiet grace, their breath steaming in the freezing air. The alpha wolf stepped forward, its gaze piercing, as if sizing him up. The man's instincts screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. The wolves circled him, their movements slow and deliberate, their growls low and menacing. Yet, there was something strange. They didn't attack. Instead, they seemed to be waiting, watching. The alpha wolf tilted its head, almost as if it were trying to communicate. In that moment, the man realized this was no ordinary encounter. The storm had brought them together. But for what purpose? He couldn't yet understand. The alpha wolf stepped forward, its massive frame towering over the others. The man braced himself, expecting an attack, but instead, the wolf did something extraordinary. It lowered its head, its icy fur catching the faint light, and let out a soft, almost pleading whine. Its piercing eyes locked onto his, filled with an urgency he couldn't ignore. Then, it turned its gaze toward the forest, looking back at him as if to say, "Follow me." The man's fear began to melt into curiosity. What could a wolf, a creature of the wild, want from him? The pack formed a silent circle around him, their growls replaced by an eerie stillness. The alpha wolf took a few steps forward, then paused, waiting. Against all logic, the man felt a strange pull, a sense that this was no ordinary encounter. With a deep breath, he decided to trust the wolf, stepping forward into the unknown. Through the relentless storm, the wolves led him to a sight he never expected, a small abandoned cabin, its wooden frame barely standing against the weight of the snow. The man hesitated, his breath visible in the freezing air as he stared at the weathered door. The wolves stopped a few feet away, their eyes watching him intently, as if urging him to go inside. The cabin seemed to call to him, a sanctuary in the midst of the chaos. He stepped forward, his boots crunching in the snow, and reached for the door. It creaked open, revealing a dark interior that promised shelter from the storm. Behind him, the wolves settled into the snow, their presence both comforting and mysterious. What had brought them here? And what secrets did this cabin hold? With a deep breath, he stepped inside, leaving the howling wind behind, unaware of what awaited him within those walls. The door creaked open, its sound echoing through the silence of the storm. The man hesitated, his heart pounding as he peered into the darkness of the cabin. The air inside was cold and still, heavy with the scent of dust and old wood. Shadows danced on the walls, cast by the faint light filtering through the snow-covered windows. He took a deep breath and stepped inside, the floorboards groaning beneath his weight. The room was sparse, filled with forgotten furniture and remnants of a life long abandoned. A cold fireplace stood in the corner, its ashes untouched for years. Outside, the wolves remained, their eyes glowing like embers in the storm. The man couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone, that something, or someone, was watching him from the shadows. But for now, this was his sanctuary, a fragile refuge from the relentless storm outside. The man froze as a faint whimper broke the silence. His eyes darted to the corner of the cabin, where a small, shivering form lay hidden in the shadows. It was a wolf pup, its fur matted and its breathing shallow. The sight struck him like a thunderbolt. This was why the wolves had led him here. They weren't hunting him. They were pleading for his help. The pup's eyes met his, filled with pain and trust. Outside, the alpha wolf stood at the door, its gaze locked on the man, as if silently begging him to save its young. The man's fear melted away, replaced by a surge of determination. He knelt beside the pup, his hands trembling as he assessed its injuries. The storm raged on, but in that moment, the cabin felt like a sanctuary, not just for him, but for the creatures who had brought him here. The wolf's secret was revealed, and with it, a bond began to form. As the man tended to the injured pup, a strange calm settled over the cabin. The alpha wolf watched from the doorway, its piercing eyes now softened with gratitude. The pup's breathing steady, its trust in the man growing with each passing moment. Outside, the pack began to howl, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to harmonize with the storm. The man paused, listening to the haunting melody, and for the first time, he felt a connection to these wild creatures. They weren't just animals, they were guardians, protectors, and now, in their own way, his allies. The storm's fury began to wane, and the man stepped outside, the pup cradled in his arms. The wolves surrounded him, their presence no longer threatening, but comforting. In that moment, he understood the truth. The bond between man and beast was not one of dominance, but of mutual respect and survival. The wilderness had spoken, and he had listened. The storm roared with renewed fury, its icy claws tearing at the cabin's fragile walls. The man stood at the window, his heart heavy as he watched the blizzard rage. The injured wolf pup lay quietly, its survival hanging in the balance. He knew he couldn't stay. The cabin wouldn't hold much longer, and the pup needed more than he could give. The wolves outside howled, their voices blending with the wind as if urging him to act. Taking a deep breath, he wrapped the pup in a blanket and stepped into the storm. The cold hit him like a wall, but his resolve was unshakable. The wolves followed, their presence a silent promise of protection. Together, they braved the storm's wrath, each step a test of courage and compassion. The wilderness had brought them together, and now it would test the strength of their newfound bond. As the storm's fury faded, the world became still, blanketed in a pristine layer of snow. The man, weary but resolute, carried the wolf pup through the silent forest, guided by the watchful eyes of the pack. The wolves moved with purpose, their presence a quiet reassurance in the vast wilderness. When the faint lights of a distant village came into view, the man felt a surge of relief. They had made it. He glanced back at the wolves, their figures stark against the snow, and felt an unspoken bond, a connection forged in the heart of the storm. The alpha wolf let out a soft, mournful howl, a sound that echoed with gratitude and farewell. As the man stepped toward the village, the wolves turned and vanished into the forest, their mission complete. In that moment, he realized the true miracle wasn't just survival, it was the unexpected kinship between man and beast, a gift from the wild. As dawn broke, the world awoke in a symphony of light and colour. The man stood at the edge of the village, the snow glistening under the rising sun. The wolf pup, now healed and full of life, bounded through the snow, a living testament to the night's miracles. The man watched, a quiet smile on his face, as the memories of the storm and the wolves replayed in his mind. He had faced the wild's fury and emerged with a new understanding, a respect for the delicate balance of nature and the creatures that called it home. As he gazed at the distant forest, a faint howl echoed through the trees, a reminder of the bond forged in the heart of the storm. The wilderness had tested him, but it had also gifted him something priceless, a connection to the untamed world and a story he would carry forever.